Ever spotted a giant mushroom that looks a bit like a pancake with dots? It could be this mushroom, Dryad saddle. It's thought to be the largest capped mushroom in the UK, and I say cap because this mushroom, although it might look like a bracket fungus, does actually have a stem and a cap. You'll find it growing out of deciduous trees, deadwood and stumps from April, May, most commonly May, right through to August. It's also called pheasant's back because it looks a bit like one, and Dryad saddle has a broad fan-like cap that's a cream to ochre colour, and it's covered in these darker, scaly patches which are normally brown. Underneath you'll see tiny pores instead of gills, and they'll be an off-white to cream colour, eventually with age going more ochre as well. And these pores, and indeed the flesh in general, smell a bit like watermelon to me, which can be a useful ID feature. The stem is very woody and tapers and darkens towards the bottom, and the best thing is there aren't any toxic lookalikes, in the UK at least. The closest lookalike is edible and called the tuberous polypore. It's much smaller even when mature and has lighter scales. When it comes to eating them, you want young specimens, which will be nice and tender with a mild mushroomy flavour when cooked, but you really do want them young, so ideally no more than 3 inches in cap width. And if you do find them young and tender enough, the best way to cook them, I think, is to slice them up thinly and then cook them quickly in a bit of oil or butter. As they mature, the flesh becomes far too tough and woody to be pleasant, but as long as they still smell pleasant and aren't too far gone, you could dry and powder them when they're big like that and add the powder to other dishes or to make stock with. To be honest, even when they are young and tender, they're okay, but they're not great. They're far from a gourmet mushroom. So even when they are young, my favourite use of this mushroom is indeed to actually dry them, powder them up, and then use them to make stock. So to do that, I just slice them up. You don't have to be wafer thin, but obviously fairly thin because they'll dry quicker. I then put them in my dehydrator, and I just dehydrate them until they are dry enough. With a mushroom, they want to be so dry that they snap like crisps. You then just powder it up. If you're doing it manually, you might use a pestle and mortar, or in my case, I used a coffee grinder, after it has washed out of coffee, of course. And then once you've got your dried powder, you can just store it in a jar or something and use it when you want to make stock. So to use the powder to make the stock, it's a very simple process of just adding water to the stock and then boiling it up. Or of course, putting your stock in the pan first and then adding boiling water to it and then getting it properly boiling. So take it to boiling point, but then you just want to reduce the heat and just simmer it. You don't want to have a rolling boil. Just very lightly simmer it for about 30-35 minutes. If you're wondering how much water and mushroom powder to use, don't overthink it. It doesn't matter too much, but as a rough guide, I use about 4 teaspoons of mushroom powder per 500 millilitres of water. And once it's made, I personally then just use the stock exactly as it is. But of course, if you wanted a nice clear stock without any mushroomy bits in, you would have to sieve it off with a bit of a sieve and a muslin cloth, for example. There's ongoing research into possible medicinal benefits for this mushroom, like antioxidant properties, but from what we know so far, it is fair to say that there are better mushrooms around, even from a medicinal point of view.